Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, Ukraine's president is in Washington with a renewed push for funding to help in the war against Russia. And one popular singer donates $1 million after 6 people were killed by tornadoes in Tennessee.
Plus, calm weather continues for several days, but that could change by this weekend. Those details coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. President Biden met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Washington today, and they are holding a news conference right now. The visit comes as U.S. funding to continue to supply weapons and ammunition to Ukraine is set to run out within weeks. CBS's Skyler Henry reports from Capitol Hill.
Welcome back.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky sat side by side with President Biden in the Oval Office as he seeks more aid to help fight Russia.
Mr. President, I've called on Congress to do the right thing, to stand with Ukraine and to stand up for freedom.
Earlier Tuesday, Zelensky took his case to lawmakers on Capitol Hill, where a $61 billion U.S. aid package for Ukraine remains stalled.
President Zelensky made it so clear how he needs help. But if he gets the help, he can win this war.
The Biden administration is asking for the money as part of a larger supplemental national security funding package, which also includes aid for Israel. But some Senate Republicans say they won't agree to the measure unless Democrats address U.S. border security needs.
Our first condition is about our own national security first. The border is an absolute catastrophe.
Time is running out for Congress to approve aid for Ukraine before the end of the year, putting Ukraine in further danger.
This winter, Putin plans once again to bombard Ukraine's electric grid. He intends to, with rockets and plunging families into darkness in the coldest part of the year.
Almost 2 years into the war, Ukraine has had some success beating back Russian forces. The U.S. intelligence community estimates Russia has lost about 87% of its active duty ground troops, as well as hundreds of combat vehicles, forcing Russia to continue the fight with stored Soviet-era equipment. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
There will be more from the ongoing news conference between Volodymyr Zelensky and President Biden tonight on the CBS Evening News, and we'll have a wrap-up tonight at 11. President Biden also announced $200 million in separate military assistance for Ukraine today. The defense rested today in the civil fraud case against former President Donald Trump in New York. The state attorney general claims Trump and his co-defendants fraudulently inflated the value of Trump's properties to get more favorable loan and insurance rates. Trump's attorneys presented more than 4 weeks of testimony seeking to rebut those allegations. The Attorney General's office is now set to call rebuttal witnesses. Closing arguments are set for January 11th. Former President Trump is selling digital trading cards again this year as a fundraiser. But this time, his digital trading cards have his famous mugshot on them. Trump's mugshot was taken in August at an Atlanta jail. That's when he surrendered to authorities after being charged in connection to his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. The cards cost $99 each. GOP presidential hopeful Nikki Haley is poised to get another endorsement. New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu is set to endorse the former South Carolina governor this evening at a rally in Manchester. He has appeared with all of the Republican candidates recently, but a source close to Sununu says he's decided to back Haley in the past few days. Sununu is set to aggressively campaign on her behalf until the New Hampshire primary on January 23rd. A source familiar with the situation claims the far-right House Freedom Caucus has elected Representative Bob Good of Virginia to be its next chairman. Good was one of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker earlier this year. Good represents a safe Republican district in Virginia, though he has faced some skepticism among Republicans for endorsing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential primary. We are just weeks away now from the Iowa caucuses, and the clock is ticking as presidential hopefuls work to make their case to voters. CNN's Julia Benbrook is in Grandview University in Des Moines, where Florida Governor and presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis will join CNN's Jake Tapper for a town hall discussion this evening.
Republican presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis recently wrapped a tour of all 99 counties in Iowa and received a rare endorsement from the state's governor last month.
I believe he is the guy that can get it done.
But a new poll shows that former President Donald Trump is still the first choice for the majority of Iowa voters, with DeSantis in a distant second at 19%. We asked some of those voters what they want to see from Florida's governor.
I would like to know how he plans on winning with Trump being up 32 points.
That same poll proved that the battle for second place is still a tight one, showing former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley polling at 16% in the state. Experts say that in order to run a successful campaign, it's important to gain momentum in Iowa.
Even if they don't beat Trump, and if they do well, they're going to be seen as a viable contender, a viable opponent.
On the trail, DeSantis is ramping up his criticism of his main competitors, taking aim at Haley, who received a big bump from major donors and is polling ahead of him in New Hampshire.
You can't have Hawkeye Haley here saying she's conservative, and then a more nuanced Nikki appealing to independents and liberals in New Hampshire. That doesn't work. You got to have the same message everywhere.
And while he's been more hesitant to speak out against Trump, DeSantis is also talking about the party's frontrunner.
He's his own worst enemy by not being able to control his mouth. And that has consequences for governance and us being able to get things done.
Reporting in Des Moines, I'm Julia Benbrook.
President Biden is set to meet with families of Hamas's American hostages tomorrow. The White House says they're in Washington to advocate for their loved ones. The families want the U.S. and Israeli governments to work harder on their release. 7 American men and 1 woman are still missing after the October 7th attack. The Americans who have been released so far include 3 adult women and a 4-year-old girl. Hunter Biden will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow, the same day that House Republicans subpoenaed him to appear for a closed-door transcribed interview. It's not yet clear if Hunter is going to sit down and answer questions from lawmakers who want to interview him as part of their impeachment inquiry. While Hunter has already traveled to D.C., sources say there's still some internal debate among his advisors about exactly how he should handle the interview request. The Texas Supreme Court has ruled a woman cannot get an abortion under the medical emergency exception. Kate Cox sued to terminate her pregnancy after learning her unborn baby has a deadly genetic condition. She says doctors told her continuing the pregnancy threatened her future fertility. The Texas Supreme Court ruled against her, but the 9 Republican justices also called on the state's medical board to provide more guidance on the medical emergency exception.
We are tracking some more dry and clear weather as we go into this evening. Here's a live look from the London Corbin Airport as the sun sets on this Tuesday, and you can see not a cloud in the sky as we go into this evening. And those temperatures are starting to cool off. Most of us reached the middle to lower 50s today, and most of us right now back in the 40s, up to 48 for Manchester, also Harlan, 45 in Hazard, and 47 over in Pikeville. And again, as the sun sets, those temperatures will begin to fall as we go into this evening, also tonight. And similar to this morning, we wake up close to freezing in the upper 20s and lower 30s on your Wednesday morning commute. Up on first alert, pinpoint Doppler, high pressure once again the big story this evening, but notice we are tracking a cold front close to the Ohio River. Now no moisture with this system, but we will see some more cooler conditions as we go into late Wednesday, also early on Thursday. But again, we stay dry on Wednesday and Thursday, and more dry weather into your Friday also to kick off the weekend. But we are tracking possibly some changes by Sunday, also Monday of next week. Those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. One of Tennessee's biggest celebrities is lending a helping hand following devastating tornadoes. Taylor Swift donated $1 million to the Tennessee Emergency Response Fund. She owns a home in the Nashville suburb of Hendersonville. That area was impacted by a tornado that produced winds of 125 miles per hour. It was just one of several twisters that killed 6 people and left thousands homeless in the state. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the best time to start saving for retirement is when you are young. The second best time is now. How you can catch up on saving.
Plus, more cool weather is on the way as we go into tonight. Your first alert forecast coming up.